Win big with new DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code ONEFREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the feature race at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. It's the 5th season stakes, race number 9, going 1 mile with the short stretch. Let's take a look at this field. $150,000 is the purse. You got an old veteran in here, Mike, the 2 Silver Prospector. He's banked over $1.3 million in his career, and he's right at home at Oaklawn Park. He winters here, and he seems to run a good one just about every time he's here.
Yeah, he does. He does run really well over this track. I also feel like the 1 mile distance is perfect for this horse, Dan. Listen, he doesn't win tons of races, but he can still do it. He's old now, but he can still do it. I thought he ran fine off the layoff last time. In some ways, he's the horse to beat in this race.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. Down from New York, stretching out with speed, is the 6 Durante. Promise Keeper, the 1 in his day, had some speed from the inside. And I wonder if first-time Robertino Diodoro, first-time blinkers, they try to get somewhat aggressive with him. I'm not saying he can wrest the lead from a quick one like Durante, but maybe he finds a nice sweet spot in second.
Yeah, exactly, Dan. He's not supposed to make the lead in here with Durante in this field, but he has the rail, and he does have pretty good speed. He can run to the first turn here, make Durante work to clear him, and just sit the pocket.
It's been a long time since Promise Keeper, the number 1, earned his last victory. That was the 2021 Peter Pan when he was trained by Todd Pletcher, but he's run some solid races since then. I think he had an excuse and a big one for last race in the Remington stake, that Hawk Memorial. He just seemed to lunge at the start, breaking from an outside post, didn't get out of there very well, was sort of wide around both turns. He was running on at the end, then he flattened out just a little bit. I think the blinkers are going to get him to focus a lot better, and I think he can break a lot better.
I agree with all that stuff. Just moving inside from the far outside post is a big advantage in itself. Listen, there are some real stinkers on his card. There are races where he just won't show up at all. I don't think that was the case last time. I'm with you. I feel like he had an excuse, but there are a couple of bad ones. But there are also good ones, and it's, as recently as last summer at Ellis Park, Dan, when they went to 9 furlongs with him in that allowance race, he ran great that day on the lead. And I know Seize the Night, who's back in here, beat him, but I think this horse ran the better race that day. I think there's a good trip coming, and if he can just show up and run his good race, he can easily beat this field.
Silver Prospector won an edition of the Southwest, a grade 3 in 2020, leading up to the Kentucky Derby that season. He didn't make the Derby, but he ended up being just a rock-solid horse, placed in good spots by Steve Asmussen, like the Steve Sexton Mile. His most recent start at Oaklawn was his first start off of a lengthy layoff. He was wired in a slow-paced race. I figured he just got a lot out of that performance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he didn't really have a fair chance last time, but all in all, just to get second in there is a fine performance for him. He won here second off the layoff last year, going the mile with a 97 Beyer speed figure. And he's got, really good tactical speed, Dan. I mean, there's a chance this pace is pretty fast. He could fall into a great trip here.
One of the horses he finished ahead of last time out came back to earn a 92 Beyer, went second in a $100,000 starter allowance. Brigadier General is up next. He won a couple of races at a mile, 2 and 3 starts back, and then he was just in a bit too tough last time out in the Tenacious Stakes. He finished 4th that day after setting the pace. The 3rd place finisher came back to place in a grade 3 at the Fairgrounds with a 95 Beyer. I didn't see much of an excuse that day, but he does have tactical speed. He just seems to fit with these horses.
Yeah, he's probably not in too tough. I mean, he's so far anyway, he hasn't really been a stakes horse, but he's probably not in over his head in this race. I didn't think he ran that well last time. He is a horse who it kind of feels like he wants to be forward, Dan, so the pace of this race may not really work that well for him. And at the end of the day, he's got the 1 rate. The 1 figure 2 starts back gives him a real chance. All of his other races, they probably don't.
I think the 4 Seize the Night has an outside chance at a pretty solid price in here. He ran down Promise Keeper to win an allowance race at Ellis Park back in June, going 1 mile and 1/8. They ran him in a couple of stakes races after that. Then it was the Ack against Zozos in Too Tough. Then they ran him on turf. I thought his last race at Oaklawn wasn't terrible. He sort of stayed inside. He was running on a bit at the end, finished ahead of a horse that came back to win a stake at Laurel with a 94 Beyer.
I mean, I guess he's got some excuses for his recent races. Dan, you mentioned that he beat Promise Keeper at Ellis over the summer. I still thought Promise Keeper ran the better race that day. This horse had a perfect trip, and it took him the length of the stretch to get by Promise Keeper, who was under pressure on the lead the entire way. This horse is fine. He fits right in here. I wouldn't take too short a price.
The 5 Capuna is far from a slow horse, and maybe he's one that could push Durante on the early lead. He ran 4th last time out at Churchill Downs. It was a race where the runner-up came back to run 3rd in the Grade 1 Malibu at Santa Anita with a 92 Beyer speed figure. The mile is a little bit concerning. I know he's won at a mile. I know he's won at a mile and a 16th, but in a race where he's on a hard chase, I wonder if a mile is going to be his best trip.
I agree with that. I feel like if the pace is fast, it could really work against this horse. And you can go back to some of those races he was running last year, Dan. Buyers of 98, 98, 99 in 3 straight dirt races. He didn't win any of those starts. He ran well in all of them. He didn't win any of them going this distance. So I don't know, man. I'm worried about the mile for him in a fast-paced race.
Durante's hit the board in his last 8 starts. David Jacobson has him in good form. Here's his most recent race. He was odds on in the Gravesend over a muddy track. Manny Franco really wanted the lead from the outside post. He just wasn't as fast as Rotney. He opted to sit off this horse, and he grinds on. He's never going to look like he's going to win, and he just missed a photo for second. The good news, if you're a Durante fan, is A, there's a short stretch of the mile run here. That could help him perhaps stretch his speed. And B, he has lasted the mile in the past. If he gets loose in a breather, he's a logical contender on his best day.
Yeah, if he can get loose in here, he could be really dangerous. Because if nothing else, since Jacobson took over last summer, this horse has been razor sharp. And that pace was just too fast for him last time. He actually ran fine. We'll see. I mean, I keep looking at this horse, wondering when the wheels are going to fall off. Maybe they won't, Dan. I got to say, I know that he's won going the mile before. He broke his maiden going a mile, I don't know, a million years ago. I don't like him stretching out for this.
Logical Myth is up next. He scored at a mile last time out, albeit in an off-turf race. It's Sam Houston. This is a conditioned allowance event, and he sat a really nice trip just off a slow pace, 25 and 150 for the half, and he's just getting away from him at the end.
Yeah, he did get a good trip in here, but he also wins, really easily when all is said and done. I do think this is a step up in class for him, Dan. But I think he's kind of a tough read in here because there's so much turf in his form. But when they do switch into dirt, he runs fine. He might actually be a pretty interesting price in this race.
Like Durante, the number 8 Nautical Star is going to be tested for distance as he stretches out off several sprints. This Oklahoma bred did look pretty good, winning a second-level allowance over muddy going 3/4 of a mile. Now, this was a very fast pace, sub-22 opening quarter. You can see the leaders are tiring, but Nautical Star is also finishing strong.
Yeah, he puts in a huge run here. I really like the way he comes and blows past this field and keeps going at the end. This is a really good performance, Dan. I don't know what it means stretching out. Generally speaking, I don't want closing sprinters stretching out, and he feels like a closing sprinter. But I don't know. If I was going to take a horse stretching out in this race, it would probably be him.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the first season. I just think Durante's going to get to the lead in here, and I think his consistency is going to help him out. I do like Promise Keeper. I think he had an excuse for his last race. I think he's going to be a lot closer with the blinkers on, and I think he's the most dangerous horse to run down Durante in the stretch.
I do too. I mean, I can't say that I fully trust him, Dan. I think he's a hard horse to trust, but I do know that his good race is good enough in here. I'll take a shot.
Sees the Ninth, the number 4 is another horse I might be interested in using, at least in single race exotics. 1-2-4-8 for Mike, 6-1-4-5 for me. It's the 5th season at Oaklawn on Saturday. Good luck.